Well, folks, thanks for joining us. Some people call this the end of summer. I see it as the beginning of autumn and a beautiful season, and things continue to go up for day-to-day news. We appreciate more people joining in all the time, and available now on not just Spotify, but you can get it on a number of platforms, YouTube and others. So thanks for joining in with us today. And if you haven't heard, there's an interesting new coinage of phrase that's going on. You remember what we used to call, what media called, George Bush, I think, was the first to use the term, the axis of evil, right after the terrible destruction at 9/11. And that in that particular time, the axis of evil was Iran, Iraq, North Korea. It broadened out a little bit. And people are now coining a new phrase, and it's called the axis of upheaval. These countries, you can help to remember what they are by using the phrase CRINK. That's China, Russia, India, North Korea. And it probably does help to really define in a snapshot what's actually going on worldwide right now. There's this coming together of these particular countries against what is seen as, again, the rise of the USA. U.S. under previous administrations, notably President Biden and President Obama, had seemed to go into a place of almost neutrality in terms of losing some of its edge. That's been very much different now, with the U.S. moving ahead to claim titles of industry and development of AI. We'll talk about that in a minute, and in many other areas. So the race is on, the fight is on. You're going to be hearing more about CRINK. And one thing I believe we should focus on, the middle initial there, India, in the middle of CRINK, that's really the only democracy of those countries. So you want to keep an eye on that. India could go either way, trying to keep a foot in both camps, and Canada could definitely play a pivotal role if we can get beyond the hurt feelings of our elbows up approach and explore a little more possibility in terms of what we could be doing. I think this is really a time for Canada, because what's driving the CRINK, or the axis of upheaval, one of the areas relates to energy and energy supply. And of course, Russia, with its stranglehold on Europe, not just through its military powers, but the fact that European countries, though they are, and they say they are, committed against Russia, and I do believe that, they continue to fund Putin's war by buying his energy, oil and gas and other energy sources. And we see this as a common thread because India is always looking for more energy. India, which is still unfortunately tied to the energy that comes from coal and massive energy plants. People aren't fully aware of this, that are formed from cow dung, believe it or not, providing cooking possibilities and cooking and energy and warmth and heat in small homes across, by the millions across that country. Here again, Canada has the opportunity to be a major force of good in supplying our clean liquid natural gas, cleaner energy products than anywhere in the world. But we are stuck with a silly policy of wanting to not have anything to do with energy because it's going to destroy the world, when in fact it could be helping the world. We're going to explore that a little more. So Canada, with some possibilities there of being a factor in breaking this axis of upheaval. Let's see if we follow through with that. The key to Canada really emerging and pursuing that theme of providing prosperity, health, a move away from the heavy pollutants that many countries are using around the world. A key to that is going to be, as we move into autumn now, the return of Pierre Poilievre, successfully elected, re-elected, I should say, in his by-election by over 80%, and now back, clearly back in center ice, and taking control, or attempting to assert more control of the political game. The mainstream media continue to, I'll use the word, despise Pierre Poilievre. And really, you have to see this in terms of two grand themes, two grand views of the universe. One is the view of the center left, which is that governments should control things, that it's basically a cultural Marxist view that a few elites should really control what's going on in our lives and in the life of a country, or the what we call small c conservative view, where individuals are seen as those who, in individuals, families, communities, would be the ones to drive key decision making, with freedom being a key factor, the freedom to choose the business you want to go into, the freedom to choose what academic role you want to pursue, the freedom to pursue families, and to be relatively independent of government. So these are the two main themes. And since mainstream media is heavily populated, huge majority of people who have been taught and grown up in the teachings of culturally Marxist leftism, they're just instinctively react against conservatives, against Pierre Poilievre in general. So he's going to have a tough fight that way. But just as his message finally got through after years of media adoration of Justin Trudeau, I see us at that same tipping point where media is still in full adoration stage of Prime Minister Mark Carney. They almost drool when they talk about him. And now we will watch and see, just as Poilievre was successful at chipping away of the myth of what Justin Trudeau could do for the country, which mainly had to do with increased debt and loss of freedoms, let's see how he does in terms of chipping away at really what is the myth of Mark Carney, who is really Justin Trudeau in many ways, but much more intelligent about it. I believe that Prime Minister Carney actually believes the things he does in terms of who should be controlling the world, who should be the dominant factors. And we're going to see again if Poilievre is going to be able to bring people's attention to the fact that left-leaning liberal policies always lead to increased unemployment, increased debt, increased deficit, that the dream, that great dream of some kind of utopia from the left eventually starts to wear thin. Let's see how that goes as MPs come back into the House of Commons, led by the Conservatives, led by Pierre Poilievre. That's going to be the key and the threat there. The situation, too, with conservatives. Conservatives have this remarkable ability to wind up destroying themselves as a political movement, or destroying their leaders, and more so than liberals or left-leaning socialists. The liberals and socialists think collectively, and conservatives, quite rightly, put a lot of influence on and a lot of focus on the individual, the rights of the individual, the rights of families, the rights of small communities. And that's where you see this clash. And that's why when things don't appear to go well for a conservative leader, be it on a temporary basis or long term, you can always trust small c conservatives in politics and in the media, those who declare themselves sometimes flimsily to be conservatives. They always start shooting themselves. They always shoot the wounded. And we can see this going on right now as the federal conservatives look at what they say could have been done better in the last federal election. Even though they had a huge increase in the number of MPs elected, they increased their popular vote. They were only 2 percentage points less than the Liberals, who won the election, but that's not good enough for some. And so what you're seeing is the ongoing sniping and shooting from behind the scenes that conservatives do to themselves. Now, combine this with what I always see as a fascinating leaning of mainstream media, who always talk in big terms about feminism and wanting to see women moving upward, moving to the fore, and being more in control of things, which is a noble sentiment, except for the fact that if you are a conservative woman in politics, you are not liked by mainstream media. You are despised, in fact, and you can see this down through modern history. If you're a woman and you're strong and you're aggressive, but you're also conservative, you're in for a rough ride. So look at all the attention, or a lot of the attention, that Jenny Byrne is getting right now. For those of you from outside Canada, Jenny Byrne is a master strategist, an amazing force in politics in Canada. And she's being painted as almost as the evil one in terms of the last election. Now, it's always good to have introspection to see where we could be doing better. But again, this is following the media pattern. If you are a woman, if you are strong, if you are successful, but here's the kicker, if you are also conservative, you're in for a rough ride. Jenny Byrne is going through that patch right now, even though there's things that should be analyzed and looked at. She's definitely facing that media onslaught. Fascinating to see. Looking and talking about energy, what you're going to see moving into the autumn and more, of course, I don't have to talk about the power of AI and where all that is going. There's no turning back. Of course, we compare it. There's the evils of AI, but the positive that AI brings are just almost beyond imagination. The breakthroughs and the speed in which solutions can be found, whether it's challenges related to our health or challenges to the environment and how we overcome those issues. I mean, you name the area, the breakthroughs are possible with the incredible development of AI. And so you see Mark Zuckerberg with his announcement with Meta and the gigantic, just the sheer size of the energy operations, or these clusters, these titan clusters that they call them, in which energy needs to be harnessed to get the fabulous development that AI can bring. One of those projects, Prometheus, is in Louisiana. I mean, just consider the magnitude of it. It's 3 square miles, a building 3 square miles, which will really pale in size in terms of what he's proposing on his second development, which is, you've all seen it on the news, juxtaposed with a picture of Manhattan. So his second project being that size. Interesting as we see commentary and discussion related to what AI can bring, because one of the factors is it takes a tremendous amount of energy. That, of course, kicks in the leftist activists who say that energy is going to kill us, that what we need to do is just harness the wind and harness the sun and everything's going to be fine. Of course, one thing mainstream media does not allow is a full discussion of the downsides of those approaches, where there's always some room for some of these alternate or intermittent forms of energy. Clearly, the effect that development of wind and solar are having on the planet, in terms of the mining that's involved, in terms of how they are not reliable sources, they're so dependent on the weather, and the cleaner effects of clean, for instance, liquid natural gas, cleaner oil, which can be reducing the amount of energy required for huge projects around the world. So the promise of AI, and it is upon us, but we're going to see what's going to happen with those who strike the note of fear, or those who are saying, can we please have a full discussion on how we really can lower emissions, if that's the problem, around the world. Interesting that Zuckerberg calls this one plant in Louisiana Prometheus. Of course, those of you who went to school back in the days when I did, before electricity was even invented, will know that Prometheus was that Greek god who snatched the fire from the gods and brought it down to for us mere mortals, for us humans to use. Unfortunately, he paid a price in Greek mythology. He was chained to a rock, and an eagle ate away at his liver for the rest of his mythological life. So Prometheus is an interesting term, and we're going to see if the fire can be harnessed. And I believe it can, but it's no guarantee, because of the threat of short-sightedness and people who do not want to see, in fact, prosperity around the world, and people, individuals, emerging with strength and freedom. So it's going to be interesting to watch that. But really, how can you say no to a $75 billion capital expenditure, a capex of that amount? The jobs that are going to be produced, I know there's a great fear about loss of employment with all of the onset of robotics and everything else, but you have to go back, look at the development, the invention, and then ongoing development of the motor car. And there was a movement in those days, people who were making buggies and people who were making buggy whips, and wanted to see more horses in hard labor. They pushed back against the development of the automobile because of the possible downsides, and there have been downsides, but really we can't argue with the fact that as technology moved along, the world is a much better place with the developments that occurred then. So I'm not in the buggy maker crowd. I'm not in the whip maker crowd. I believe AI has some great possibilities if we develop, and if we develop carefully and listen to all sides and move away from this awful development that's ongoing in media and in government of not allowing both sides of an argument to emerge so that people can make their own decisions. Another Canadian moment that's possible here is this development of AI and the need for massive amounts of energy, which can be provided in a way that is healthy and not destructive. I was talking to a 14-year-old just recently. She and her friends were talking about the fact that what they're being told on the internet, the sources and platforms that they look at, which most adults have no idea of whatsoever, they're being shown a picture of an AI plant, an AI power plant, and then somebody holds up a bottle of water, and they're being told that every time you do a search of any kind, a Google search, an AI search, something on chat or Perplexity or Grok, every time you do a search of any kind, you're wasting a bottle of water. These are the types of instruments and visuals that the anti-progress crowd, the left-leaning crowd, are putting on the minds of our young people, and we need to be out there and demanding that our educators, our school systems, and our media show both sides of arguments and not just be pulverizing young people with fear by only giving them one side of an argument and one side of a discussion. Alberta has a tremendous possibility here. Those who are from outside Canada, you want to look up Premier Danielle Smith, and a truly remarkable woman, again, a woman facing severe headwinds daily in mainstream media, because even though she's smart, she's innovative, she's in touch with people, guess what she's got going against her? She's conservative in her thinking, so she is definitely always under attack by media. But this could be Alberta's moment. It could be Canada's moment. Are we going to rise to the occasion, or are we just going to skate around in circles on the ice, whimpering something about elbows up? How about vision upward? How about having our hearts up and open and our minds up and open to the possibilities that are before us? We hope that emerges. Interesting. We like to always reflect at the end of our podcast on some of the things that are happening in culture. And at the Venice Film Festival that's been going on right now, interesting how some of these themes emerge and emerging away from Hollywood, and really the smart producers and the smart movers of movies who want to get international acclaim are seeing that they can use these festivals to do that. So two what are being heralded as amazing films coming out of the Venice Film Festival just yesterday. Each of these films getting a 15-minute standing ovation. Now, my political life, I've never had anything close to that, and maybe there's good reason for it, but 15 minutes. So interesting that audiences are trying to signal. Audiences at these festivals tend to be, of course, left of center and left-leaning, but it's significant to know what they're applauding. So the one film called The Smashing Machine is a true life story all about this mixed martial arts and everything that goes on with this type of fighting, which has really caught on in popularity. So I understand Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt give amazing performances here. The theme there underlying this, and there's apparently some very good themes to be looked at here: drug addiction, can that be overcome? The effects of that really should cause us to reflect on our drug policy, which is basically failing people across the country and across the world. Wherever there's a free provision of drugs and the availability to have drugs administered in so-called safe sites, etc., it's really not bringing positive results. As we know, But there is a serious look at the question because Dwayne Johnson, who plays the fighter, Mark Kerr, who's a real life individual, it shows his battles with that, and it's good to understand those battles that go on. And then the second movie, it's about Anne Lee, the Testament of Anne Lee. Anne Lee, of course, as many of you know, was, especially in the so-called charismatic movement, a very famous religious figure, moved from England in the 1800s, starting a whole movement in the U.S. And really a compelling life story. Here's a woman who lost each of her 4 children, went on to become very religious, very focused on God. She was seen to be the possible return incarnate of Jesus Christ, a second coming of sorts. So an exploration of her life, the things she believed. Once again, I find it fascinating that Hollywood, because most people in entertainment and Hollywood culturally cannot accept, do not want to accept the fact there's a possibility that there's even a God who exists, or that Jesus Christ was who he said he was. So instead of denying that he existed, which you can't deny that because he did exist, this portrayal of Jesus Christ as a woman is sort of fascinating to watch. We saw it with recently with the remake of Jesus Christ Superstar, and a woman being posed in the role of Jesus Christ, and now the potential with the second coming, a Christ figure, and in the form of a woman. This was actually Anne Lee's life and some of the aura around her. So fascinating to see. And as a rabbi once told me, I guess when the second coming happens, we will find out who the Messiah really is. Let's have a great day and move into autumn with some air of hope as we challenge these issues that are before us. Thanks for joining in.